Welcome to Between the Reads, a podcast about Black books. I'm your host, Audra Russell. Welcome to Season 3. There are so many great new things happening this year with the podcast, and I can't do it without your support. So please consider heading over to patreon.com/betweenthereads to join. Are you ready, Booze and Bros? Then sit back, relax, and let's get to it. Cetonia Weston is the founder of Niche Book Bar and the Black Authors Collective. She is a lover of speculative fiction and that new book smell. Cetonia is also the author of the Misadventures of Toni Macaroni children's book series and hopes to spread the joy of a good book. Cetonia, welcome to Between the Reads.
Thank you for having me.
You are most welcome. I'm so excited to have you here. I read Toni Macaroni. I loved it. It reminded me so much of growing up. My mother was a nurse, so when she first started out, she worked at night, and so my dad would do the cooking. And to this day, I cannot stand corned beef hash. I will not.
His favorite meal.
Oh, he would cook it and slop it on the plate and squeeze ketchup on top of it and was like, dinner. And we were like, we're not hungry. And when I saw the pictures in the book, it just reminded me so much of my father. So this was a great book.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So why don't you tell our readers what this book is all about and what age group it's for?
Right, yeah. So my first one, The Misadventures of Toni Macaroni in the Mad Scientist. I wrote it with 6 to about 9-year-olds in mind, but I definitely think, up to 12 might get a kick out of it. Mm-hmm. Basically, it's just about a series about an over-imaginative little girl who finds herself into trouble because she lets her imagination run away with her. Mm-hmm. But she usually learns some sort of lesson along the way. So this specific one is dealing with her father's awful cooking, but how to express yourself in a positive and, appropriate manner.
Right. Now, where did the inspiration for this book come from?
It was actually me. Toni Macaroni was one of my nicknames growing up. Okay. On account of my noodle arms and legs. I was very thin. Mm-hmm. And I also had a big imagination. Okay. And, I had a little aversion to noodles for a while because of, they looked like worms, I guess. And every time I would go to a family gathering, they'd have some sort of story of something just wild I did as a child. And, you go through the teenage years and you're just kind of rolling your eyes at it. Right. But then as I got older, I was like, these are actually really cherished and fun memories. Mm-hmm. This would make a great story. Okay. So that's where Toni Macaroni came up. Okay, because one of my later questions was this drawn off of your experiences growing up as a child? So it was. Okay. All right. Now, the book uses humor to teach some valuable lessons, which you just hinted about a little bit. It teaches valuable lessons to kids, like telling the truth without being rude, self-advocating, and really kind of fighting for what you want, in a way that's constructive. So why are these issues important for you to put into your children's book? I thought it was important, not only for her, but for her family dynamic, mm-hmm. that she's kind of allowed to express herself as long as it's appropriately. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to really show that family dynamic where maybe the parents don't always get it right. Maybe, the children are learning mm-hmm. and not getting things right, mm-hmm. but they come together at the end and they can resolve it together. Right. So that was what was really important to me, just showing that openness in the family dynamic. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So tell us about the dad in this story, because he's really kind of a cool and kind of funny guy.
Yeah, so I grew up both with my father and then my stepfather in my life, and neither of them are particularly cool and funny guys, if you ask me. So hopefully they don't see this. But there's definitely aspects of them both in there. I think the openness to kind of hear what I had to say comes from my biological father.
Okay.
The awful cooking was more my stepfather.
Okay.
So there were some parts that he was taken from, and just really just doting on his baby girl. I think that was something I took from my own experiences as well to make this character. But I just really wanted him to be a maybe smart guy that maybe just has one little flaw that you see.
Right.
And that is his cooking.
Right. So now, even though the majority of primary school children in the U.S. are now Black children and children of color, the publishing industry still continues to produce books that overwhelmingly feature white children exclusively. And your book not only features a young girl, but a Black family with a healthy family dynamic and this wonderful support system, because we see that the dad is kind of taken over for the weekend while mom goes out of town on a girls' trip, and grandma is there and kind of comes in as well. So I want to talk about this beautiful family dynamic that you have in this book.
Yeah. I'm glad you noticed that. When I was doing all the characters, of course I drew inspiration from my own family, but that is what I wanted to show. I wanted to show a healthy dynamic where dad's pitching in where he can. The grandparents are a part of their life. It's just something I really wanted to portray. And I don't know if it's something you noticed. For me personally, it was important to not draw attention to, although I love self kind of like lifting books. I wanted it to be normal that Toni wears her hair out into an afro, and there's no message behind it besides that this is her.
This is her
she
hair.
loves the way she is. She's comfortable. You can kind of see all throughout she's just comfortable with herself as a person, and that's normal. So those are some things I wanted to insert. I didn't call attention to, that the dad was helpful or that they had this healthy family dynamic. I just wanted it to be. It was of course.
Yeah, it was just exhibited in the story, and I really love that, because it kind of it makes you understand, and maybe kids will get that too, that everything that we do doesn't have to be, having a healthy family dynamic isn't like this miraculous thing. It's a normal thing. A lot of Black families experience, wearing our hair out doesn't have to be something that has to be examined. It doesn't have to be a statement. It doesn't have to be, always looked at, so those are just kind of wonderful things that I loved about this book, because I really was not focusing on the fact that, she's a little girl with her natural hair and her dad and her mom. I just noticed all the things as I was reading the story, like, this is really cool. And I was more focused on how Toni was going to get out of eating this slop that her dad made.
Right, which I think he's a little worse off than I had to deal with, but
right,
yeah,
right, yeah. I mean, because the part that cracked me up was where the smoke alarm was going off, I think, at the beginning, and she realized mom's gone. She's on a girls' trip, and she gets down and she goes out the door and she does like this ninja flip and lands on her face, and she's like trying to get to the kitchen to figure out what's going on to see what dad is cooking, and he like comes up from behind like, "Hey, Toni." She's like, "Oh man."
which has definitely happened to me multiple times, with child trying to ear hustle or trying to spy and be sneaky, and then find out
right
I wasn't that sneaky after all.
Right, yeah. And then the Sir Hops-a-Lot, I love him. He was just this little frog, and he spoke to her. It was just like, okay, she's got a little frog, and he's in her little pocket, and he talks to her, and he's like, it's like he's her conscience, because when she's trying to figure out what to say to her dad, and it comes out all wrong, he's just like, you did it wrong.
Right. And Sir Hopsalot, so I grew up partially in Florida, so there was a lot of trying to catch lizards and trying to catch frogs. I don't know if I was great at it, but I did grab a few here and there.
Okay.
So I've liked amphibians and reptiles. And we actually did catch a frog once and name him Sir Hopsalot.
Oh.
So that was one of my inspirations behind him. But that is how it is. You can read it to your children as, oh yes, this is definitely a talking frog, or you can just say this is her imagination,
right? And
this is her conscious kind of telling her in the back of her head,
like, or
from the bottom of her pocket, right from wrong, throughout the story.
Like no, you didn't do that. I love Sir Hopsalot. He was really kind of cool. So this book is part of a series. Can you tell us, are there other books out in the series?
There's one other out in the series,
okay.
And then I realized I was kind of cranking it out, and then I was just like, there's no one telling me I have to crank these out at a certain time.
Right.
So I decided on this third one to really start slowing my pace, especially everything with the pandemic and everything going on. So the second one is out, and it is the Misadventures of Toni Macaroni in Monsters on My Street.
Okay. And what's that about?
That's the next one. So that one is about a family that moves in on her block.
Okay.
And they're a little strange, or as she puts it, their mama says they're free spirits, but I don't think any of them are ghosts. So that's kind of like the opening line on that one. And they each display something that she finds a little strange, and so she kind of assigns that, oh, they must be some sort of monster. They must be something strange and scary. And so that one is more about accepting people who are different.
Okay.
And maybe not assigning negativity to differences right away.
Okay.
But it's definitely a fun little journey along the way as she tries to fit the pieces together and protect her street as a monster buster.
Right. Okay. And then the third one, do you have a tentative title for it?
The tentative title is The Misadventures of Toni Macaroni, which will all start that in Snaggletooth Tiger. Okay. So I don't want to talk too much about the plot because, that can change and grow. But Snaggletooth Tiger is the
I have an idea. I have an idea of what it's about.
Yeah.
And when can we expect that third book out?
I would think sometime in the next year.
Okay. So now your bio says that you love speculative fiction. Do you plan to write any, or are you sticking with the children's genre right now?
I do have some short stories, and I do write here and there, but I think I'll just have to see where that goes.
Okay.
But I do tend to write little short stories here and there in that genre.
Okay.
But I don't know if I'll go to the publishing part of it. We'll have to see.
Okay. Or maybe write some children's speculative fiction.
That's true. Yeah. Those are pretty fun, too.
Yeah. Okay. So now let's talk about the niche book bar. Now, you went from peddling books on the back of a bicycle to opening a store in Bronzeville in Milwaukee. Please share this journey with us, and we could start with the bike you built.
Yeah. So the bookstore was always the end goal. So I did author events going up to it, local author events, and setting up around the city. And then right as I was trying to look into getting loans and things like that to set up a brick and mortar, it was literally COVID hit.
Oh, wow.
And everyone was shutting down, and people were losing their buildings, and it's just that makes no sense to try to get a building when no one can come inside, and everyone's, shut down. So I thought about it, and I was like, well, how can I be outside? How can I still get this bookstore kind of in the minds of people now, and in books with Black characters, in people's hands. So what came to mind and in my budget was a bike.
Okay.
So I just bought a used tricycle, like adult tricycle, and had a local guy build up a little, like you can break it apart, kind of fold it out, little book stand onto the bike of it, so, on the back of it, so I could store books and then set them out.
And you just rode around selling books.
Yeah, mostly like farmers markets, art walks, block parties. Sometimes I just go to parks and just to read. So yeah, I just popped up a little bit of everywhere.
And how was it received when you would show up on the bike with the books?
First, it was actually funny because I don't know if it was the angle or what, but some people would just kind of walk up and then they kind of double take, like, oh, this is a book case on this bike. Like, I saw the bike. I didn't notice the buildup at first. So then that usually piqued their interest, and then they'd see all the books and kind of see exactly what I was trying to do right away just from the books that were out.
Okay.
So it was a much stronger reaction than I was expecting. Honestly, I remember thinking, oh, I look so dorky. I already know. People are probably like Snapchatting their friends, like, what is this girl doing? What is this? Why is this happening?
Right.
But it got a very positive reaction, and adults and children alike often waved at me as I was going by.
So did you become known throughout the city as the girl with the bike? Did you kind of develop that?
Yeah, there was some people who were like, oh, I heard about you, or like, oh, I actually saw you riding, and now I see you here. So there was some recognition, and I was just kind of like, oh, the city.
Wow.
I mean, Milwaukee's not the biggest city,
right?
But it's big enough I didn't expect people to sort of know.
Right. Yeah. So now the Niche Bar will be the only Black-owned bookstore in Milwaukee since the Reader's Choice closed in 2017. That's still...
It was at the time that we were building up. But since then, there have been some other openings, which is really exciting.
Okay.
So we've got Rooted MKE now, which is not too far from my house.
Okay.
There is a guy who has a storefront, but it sells just his own books.
Okay.
And I think that's all for Milwaukee.
Okay.
So, but there are some other, like, people of color trying to open bookstores and do different book. I'm definitely wasn't the only book worker, I guess you could say. There are definitely people doing literary minded things in the city. But yeah, now we're not alone, which is definitely what you want. You want more than one.
Right, exactly. City. So how is your storefront coming along? Are you in the storefront? Is it open?
No, we're not in it yet. It's pretty slow. So it's a historic building and it's a city-owned property. So there's a lot of hoops to jump through with both of those things attached. But it is for sure they've granted that they want to sell it to us. It's for sure. It's just a matter of paperwork and I think a couple hoops.
Okay, that's great because I saw the pictures on your website. It's kind of like a cool-looking house, kind of. Yeah. Yeah,
it's like it's got that old school look. It's from the late 1800s. So it's got the storefront.
Okay.
And yeah, it's just got a lot of charm.
Okay. So have you actually gone in and started to remodel yet, or you're still in the paperwork process?
Still in the paperwork process, but I've been in and definitely am already dreaming of what that inside will look like.
Okay. So then tell us some of your plans for the Niche Book Bar.
Yeah, so when I first kind of went on this journey, end of 2018, 2019, I always knew I wanted it to be varied Black books, and that's varied. Some people think I'm saying very Black books. And I say that because it's very hard, I feel, to find Black books that aren't rooted in trauma. Yes. And for me, rooted in trauma is like, that's just the whole point. There's no other characters or we're not focusing on people's full lives. We're kind of focusing on the trauma they had, which was a lot and which should not be ignored. But it should be more genres out there and in your face. So I really just want to focus on some of those speculative fictions, some of those romances, some of those memoirs that kind of tell the full person. So that's kind of been my goal with the books, the content that's there. But I also knew I wanted people to be able to sit down with a glass of wine while they're doing so. Because I know that's one of my pastimes. I like a glass of wine with a book. So.
So you're going to have like a whole sitting space and people can come in and have a glass of wine?
Places to sit. Just a very small wine menu. Very basic coffee and tea and a basic little, I don't know, like a scone or muffin sort of deal. Something very simple.
Awesome. Well, if you need help getting Black authors, you know, from all the genres, I've had a few on my show from pretty much everything: historical fiction, crime fiction, romance, fantasy, horror. So if you need books, let me know. I can point you in the direction of authors who are in all the genres.
Oh yes, and I love connecting with people in those genres, kind of those underrepresented genres.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Absolutely. Now, you also have a book club. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, we are on a hiatus right now, but it's called the Well Read, R-E-D, Book Club. And that was actually pitched by a follower on Instagram when I was jokingly, you know, saying like, oh, what should we call Friends of Niche? And I think Well Read Group or something is something she said. I was like, oh, I don't like that for what to call you, you know, in general, but I love that for a book club name, the Well Read Book Club. So we started that last year, and we ran till about November of this past year. And then now we're on hiatus because I just would like to do this in a space, you know, and actually bring people in while doing this. So it's kind of the same thing. Grab a glass of wine is encouraged, and our books focus on kind of a variety of genres of Black literature.
And you also founded something called the Black Authors Collective, which I love. And it's a platform for local Black indie authors to collaborate and share their work.
Yeah, so before the book bike, it started out as Black Authors Pop-Up. So that was me reaching out to all the local authors and us popping up together at usually Black-owned establishments around the city. And so that's sort of how that group culminated. And then when I introduced the bookstore to the public, I switched the name. And we're still trying to find our footing with what's best with that. I'm kind of gearing towards more of a information hub for them to share amongst each other. Because there's a lot of things you don't know in writing a book, or even the process of just not even publishing it, but like just the writing part. So
yeah, absolutely. So how many members do you have in the collective right now?
Right now, 30.
Oh wow, that's a lot. And they're all there. Are they all, because it's a Facebook group, so are they all like based in Milwaukee? Because you said it's local, so they're all.
Most of them are in Milwaukee. We've got a few other people from the Midwest and maybe like 2 southern states in there now. But definitely the idea is to just try to get more interaction than numbers, you know? Just have really people in there interacting with one another and mentoring and learning. So now and you want to eventually meet in your bookstore space. So how can people help you? How can we support your efforts to get the bookstore done? Well, we have our website, Find Your Niche, NICHEMKE.com. You can share some posts on our Instagram or Facebook to get it out there. You can grab a book from us, a subscription. We do have a donation link to help with building buying some of the baubles and all of that along the way. But even something as a share or a follow on our social medias and interacting is awesome. It's an awesome way to help.
And I noticed that even though, you know, you don't have the physical space yet, like you said, you have your website and you're still very much a bookstore. You're just online right now. Everything, but you're still operating online. I think that's pretty awesome. So.
Yeah, it has been awesome, and I'm thinking of new things and trying to see how that switch to in person will be. So I think it'll be interesting, some new things to learn, but definitely ready for that.
Okay. And so what is next for you? I know you put kind of things on the back burner because you're working on the bookstore, but what is next for you as an author once your bookstore is up and running the way you want it?
I think to pay more attention to that third Toni Macaroni book will be on my radar, and then, well, it'll be on my agenda. And I think I'll continue to try those more adult and young adult speculative fiction stories and see if that could possibly be something I want to put into the atmosphere with everyone else.
Okay. And do you have any advice for author hopefuls out there, or even bookstore owner hopefuls out there that you want to share?
Yeah, I'd say for both of them, it's a pretty similar advice, which is just get started somewhere. You're not always going to know where to start. You might not even always have a perfect start, but if you start somewhere, that'll lead to another place, which will lead you to another place, which will lead you to where you want to go. So, you know, don't twiddle thumbs too long. Just make that first step somewhere.
Right. Get out there and do it. So if I come back to Milwaukee, I used to live in Illinois, and I went to Milwaukee to go to Six Flags. So if I come back to Milwaukee, even when your bookstore is up and running, are you still going to ride the bike around and deliver books on the bike?
My thought is to keep it in the neighborhood at that point.
Okay.
Because that was a lot of work, and there's a lot of hills. And I have found myself pushing up a very heavy bike up hills. So I think we'll keep it in the Bronzeville neighborhood and have story time pop-ups. You know, keep it light.
Right. Now, I need to ask, because Bronzeville, there's a Bronzeville in Chicago that's historic. Is your area a historic Black area as well?
Yes, it was. So there's an awesome PBS documentary on it that I've watched. I've also heard that there was a book, but I haven't read the book yet, but I did see the PBS documentary. And so it is a historic Black neighborhood that kind of felt was put to the wayside when they put the highway through it. They cut it through with the highway.
Typical.
So kind of age-old, right? Age-old story. But it's really trying to face this revival of Black businesses jumping back into these spaces. And I really love how there's a lot of creative spaces popping up. So,
have you found out any cool facts about the building that you're going to have your bookstore in? Like any cool historic things that have happened there? Or?
No, I haven't heard of anything. Just, I think it was like a convenience store at some point. But besides that, no. But I'm sure I will. Hopefully no ghosts. But if not, that would make an awesome atmosphere for October book clubs.
Yeah, or you could do another Toni Macaroni series with the ghost, you know, some more ghost stories.
Right.
So where can we find your books?
My books are available just about anywhere you can get them. So bookshop.org, our own site, Barnes & Noble's, and then Amazon as well. Okay.
And where can we find you on social media and the internet? I know you said your website, but let's give all that information again.
Okay, so our website is findyourniche, NICHEMKE.com, and you can look Niche Book Bar. I know it's also pretty regional, so niche, you can say niche as well, niche or niche, is both on Instagram and Facebook.
Okay, great. Well, we have come to the end of our show. I want to thank you so much for sharing your time and your talents with us today. I'm really inspired by everything you're doing.
Oh, well, thank you so much. And yeah, thanks for reaching out. It's been great talking with you.
Yes, absolutely. And Boots and Bros, you know how I do. At the end of every show, I give you a quote. And today's quote comes from the late entrepreneur and millionaire, Madam C.J. Walker. And she said, "I had to make my own living and my own opportunity, but I made it. Don't sit down and wait for the opportunities to come. Get up and make them." Until next time, y'all, you know what to do. Grab a book and read, and I'm out. Thanks for lending me your ear today. If you enjoyed this content, please head over to betweenthereads.com and leave a rating for the show. While you're there, consider supporting this independent podcast by becoming a patron at patreon.com/betweenthereads. Join us next week for another great episode.